All right, what's going on, y'all? This is Aaron with Thrive Outdoor Solutions. Today we are going to be going over how to program and set up your Rain Bird ESP-TM2 controller. Let's get after it. All right, so on the controller, again, kind of going over what we're seeing and kind of also explaining to you exactly what it is each dial or each option does for you. The most important thing to understand is to always ensure your date and time is set correctly. The way that you're going to set your date and your time is that you're going to move the dial over to date and time. Obviously pretty straightforward. With this being said, again, as you're changing the different dates, the area in which you're going to be changing is going to be flashing at you, which you can see here is flashing at you. We're saying that we're going to be changing the day. If you were going to cycle through any of these options, whether it be the date and time, the run times, watering days, the way that you're going to do that is by hitting the right or left arrows to kind of cycle through. So if you hit the right arrow, you can see that it shifts over to changing the month. And so the month is indicated by flashing at us, and that's going to tell us that if we're going to make changes by hitting this plus or minus button here, that's what's going to be changed. There you can see going from October to September. Same thing with the year. You just go over to the right button, you'll see that it's the year 2024, depending on what year you're in. Obviously make sure that you're following that, and then that will get you set up for your date and for your date. The other options here, if you continue to move over to the right arrow, you'll see that it moves over into your time options. Now if you hit it one more time, get through the hours and minutes option, you'll see that you have the option to choose whether a 12 or a 24-hour option for your controller. That again is really just preference, depending on how you would like to set your controller up, is dependent on what you choose for whether it be 12 or 24-hour time clock. If you go back, again, you can see here that it's flashing at us, and that's going to be changing our minutes. Of course, if we wanted to add, we hit the plus button. If we wanted to take away, you hit the minus button. From there, what you'll do is you'll jump into changing your start times. Now, your start times, this particular controller has 3 programs available to you, which you can cycle through using the program select button. So you just kind of hit the program select. As you can see, it goes from A, B, and C. Each program individually has 4 start times available to you. So you can use those however you'd like. If you'd like to cycle and soak your property, recommend that you look into your options for that. Googling can definitely help you in answering some questions. Also, if you contact an irrigator that's local to you, you can also ask questions for those folks on what the best options are for cycling and soaking your property. A lot is taken into account, and whether it be soil type, grade of the property, etc. So it is very important to make sure that you are doing your research if that's what you're wanting to set up. From there, if we wanted to set, let's say within program A, we're wanting to set up multiple start times. As you can see, it's got a start time already set up for 2:45 a.m. It's really important to always pay attention to that AM and that PM, because there is a chance that if you don't, you might be setting it up in PM when you want it to go off in AM. And as you know, that can be quite frustrating when you go outside and you expected your system to run this morning and it's actually running in the middle of the day. So it's very important to always check if you're in the AM or PM settings for your times. The setup here, if you do, it's pretty much the same as you were setting up for your date and your time. You're going to move over to the right to cycle through your start times, and of course, as you can see, hitting the plus or the minus button will take away time. Now, the start times are not going to allow for you to select individual times. It goes through 15-minute intervals, so it's not going to say that I want my time to start off at 3:35. It's only going to allow you to select 3:30. As you can see, it's only in 15-minute intervals. So that is something that you definitely want to take into account as well. Now, When it comes to your run times, as you can see, those allow for you to set individual minutes or hours, so you can get specific with that. If you want it to do 13 minutes, well, just simply put in 13, and that will get you situated for that as well. These will allow for you to do it because it's more important to say, okay, I need this to run for 8 minutes on time rather than, 15 or 5 or 10. So that's something that doesn't do 5-minute intervals. It allows for you to select exactly what you want, which is great. Now, again, when you're doing these run times, it is important to always account for what program you're in. If you're wanting to make changes to a specific program, just hit the program select button here, cycle through the options there for you, so that way you can make sure that you're adjusting the correct program. So you do need to always keep in mind what program you are trying to adjust, but you also need to take into account the number of zones you have on your system. How you would do that is by removing this piece right here to the front, and as you can see, it shows you all of the wiring that you have. If you have a wire in a zone slot or a zone terminal, you do have a zone being wired into your controller from there. Now, is it working? Is it not? That's something that you need either one to know electrical diagnosing of irrigation systems pretty well, or you can reach out to a licensed professional to come out and diagnose an area if a zone's not working properly, and get them to repair that area for you. But for the sake of this video, we know that we have 10 zones in total, so you can see the little number 10 there in that terminal. This wire here is the last wire we've got, so we've got 10 zones available to us to set up in our program. You just click that back into it, you'll hear it kind of click in, and you are good to go to start programming your zones for this. Now, with this particular program, we do want all 10 zones to water. And as you move over to the right, you can see that it cycles through your zone options here. Now, I've got my seasonal adjust already situated because we're in October, but if you don't have the seasonal adjustment, which we'll go over that here in a second, you should see this basically not be on your screen. We'll go over that shortly to kind of give you an idea on what seasonal adjustments do for you. However, again, we can see that we've got all 10 zones being utilized. Again, same options apply for you. If you want to add time, you hit the plus button. If you want to take away time, you hit the minus button. Of course, cycling through your programs there for you as well allows for you to make individual changes to those programs. You can see program B, all I've got is zone 10 running, as well as zone 1. But if we move over to program C, zone 1's running, but only zone 10 is running as well. The next step for this would be to say we go into our watering days. Now, this is saying that I want this system to turn on this day, and that's pretty much it. Again, if you can see, as you can see up here at the top, right now Friday shows that it's off, so it's got a flashing symbol at us for Friday, but it's also got a circle with a dash through it, and that's just indicating that it's not watering on that day, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday and Saturday are off because in my local area they give me 2 days to water based on the last digit of my house number. Again, watering days are specific to municipalities. At least in the state of Texas, you have a minimum 2 days or a maximum 2 days to water, but your municipality can change that. They can also go down from 2 to 1 day, just depending on supply of water. So always research that first. Make sure you know exactly what your watering days are. Very simply done in Google. Just type in your city and say, what are, blank city, my watering days for irrigation, and that should pop up your answers there for you to be able to get that situated. Again, very much of the same. You cycle through with left and right arrows. If you want it to be on, you just hit the adding that day. As you can see, the little water droplet went from a circle with a dash through it to a solid droplet. If we were to go back to Friday, you can see that it now reads that it is on. Okay, if you want to turn it off, if there's a day that you have on there that you do not want to water, just simply hit the minus button and you can see that it does the same thing, right? It goes back and turns it off and takes care of Friday for me with it being off. Okay, the sensor is really just dependent on if you have a sensor on your property or not. As you can tell, I've got a Rain Bird WR2, a wireless rain and freeze sensor. And so I want to make sure that mine shows active. However, if you do not have a rain and freeze sensor on your system, you do not want it to be in the active position. It will, and sometimes will shut your system off because it's thinking that I am supposed to have a sensor, but I don't. You know, I'm being told that we don't have any where we have rain or we have freezing temperatures, even though you may not. So that's something that you want to make sure that it's going to be disabled. So just hit the minus button there. As you can see, it says sensor is now disabled, and it will disable your or bypass your rain and freeze sensor, so it's not turning off your system in the event of just to turn it off, right? That's something that we definitely want to make sure you guys are having a fully functioning system. Now, if you do not have a rain and freeze sensor, I do recommend to get a rain and freeze sensor. It's very, very beneficial for you to have on your property. Again, it's simply put is if it's detecting rain or detecting freezing temperatures, it is the best option to relay that information to your controller and tell your controller to not run your programmed schedule, and it just does a really good job. We've got a video that we took of the wireless rain and freeze sensor, or the Rain Bird WR2 wireless rain and freeze sensor. I'll put a link in the right corner of the video here. There'll also be a link in the description below for this video that will take you to how to use that system, that sensor, and you know, you can make your decision based off of what your needs are. I personally love that sensor. It's one of my favorites to use, but you know, you may be looking for something more simplistic. It's really up to you. So do your research on that, but that's a great sensor to go with if you do not have one. They are very easy to install, but yeah, just kind of go from there. Do with that information as you will. So we definitely want to make sure our sensor is active. So we hit the plus button, it's going to say sensor is now active, and then you'll see it read active on the screen. Now, from going over from here, now as I mentioned, we're going to be going over some seasonal adjustments. We're going to make a video for seasonal adjustments, and we'll make sure that you know, you hit that notification bell so that way you get notified when we put out new videos. But that video is going to go really in depth with what you should do for setting up seasonal adjustment, some just kind of general rule of thumbs with seasonal adjustment, but this here is just kind of saying let's blanket all for this one. Now if we go over, as you can see, it's saying all, it's going to blanket every single program based off of that. You can obviously do that by just hitting your minus button here. So we want to say, hey look, let's go to 75% for all. We're going to leave that at 100%, but if you move over to the right, you can see that we've got, oh, excuse me, not to the right. You're going to hit the program select button here. Now hitting the program select button, obviously you can see it changes over to program A. Same thing with B, C, etc. right? Now we've got this option here where you can kind of go down and hit the plus or minus button to take away your percentages, or as I mentioned before, you can just get over to where it says all programs, and then you can make your adjustments accordingly to get that stuff situated for you. Currently I've got all my programs seasonally adjusted down to 75%, but that's, again, some research is definitely necessary to ensure that you're honing that seasonal adjustment in to do the best for you and your property. Manual watering, again, as you kind of move the dial through, the manual watering again is going to either be all zones or just specific zones. And the thing with the all zones is that you have a one-time set for all zones. So if I were to set my zones to run for 2 minutes and I held my little the right arrow down and to start it, again, that's going to run every zone. So in this case, all 10 zones for 2 minutes only. And it's going to cycle through each one of those consecutively. So it'll move from zone to zone for you, so that way you don't have to come back to the controller. Now, the downside is that you can't set, I want zone 1 to run for 2, zone 2 to run for 5, zone 4 to run for 10, etc. You can't do that on this option. However, you can run a program program separately from manual watering, which is pretty nice. Now again, like I said, same thing, move over to the right and to the left. You can add time by hitting the plus button or minus button to take away, and you're good from there. If you're wanting to run your program, what you would do is move the dial into the auto position. And as you can see on the screen, right next to where it says seasonal adjust percentage, it reads hold right arrow to start. When you hold that right arrow down, you'll see that it reads started. What that is a manual program start. So right now we're on program C. Program C is only set to run zone 10 for 4 minutes. Now if we go back, turn off that zone or that manual program start, we're going to let it go to off. Once it stops flashing at you, it's good to go to continue to move over without it running a zone. But then if you went to program A and hit that same right arrow, you would see that it starts off with zone 1 at 12 minutes. And of course you can cycle through and move over to zones. Now the only downside to this particular controller, and I think that Rain Bird would do some good to make this adjustment, is that if you hit this hold right arrow to start, and you cycle through by accident. So say if I went from zone 1 and I hit that right arrow and I didn't mean to, or if I wanted zone 1 to run again, you cannot go back by hitting the left arrow. And that really stinks. I mean, I really wish that they gave us that option to cycle back and forth, but they don't. So the only way to really kind of go away from that or to fix that problem is to turn the dial off, let it read off, without, no flashing, just signaled solid off, go back to the auto position and then hold the button down again and you can get to zone 1. That's the only way you can cycle through or go back to a zone running. And it really stinks. I wish they would allow for you to kind of go back and forth, but I just am a lowly irrigator. I do not work for Rain Bird. And we're not sponsored by Rain Bird either. This video is just to kind of go through and get you guys set up on how to run your ESP-TM2. That pretty much does it. Again, there's a lot of options available out there. Do some research as you start to, kind of dive into setting your controller. Call your local irrigator, ask them some questions. They'll be more than happy to educate. I'm more than positive there's lots of irrigators, lots of good quality irrigators out there that love to educate if you give them a little bit of time to do so. So with that being said, thank you guys so much again. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button and ding that bell so that way you'll get some notifications as we start to bring more content to you guys. Thank you so very much for watching the video, and y'all make it a great day.